Welcome everybody to Loki Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Juvel Delima. Today I'm joined by Jane Singer, an energetic force in the world of global business strategy. Known for turning setbacks into wins, Jane is an sought-after coach, trusted mentor, and a master of simplifying complex markets. She's led diverse teams, driven product innovation, and is the voice behind the Sit at the Table podcast. So Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chauvel. It is really a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, of course, it was a pleasure to have you on my show and to learn more from you about your story, how you start your podcast, and how are you making an impact right now in your industries. Can you tell us a little bit about background? How did you get started in your career?
Well, basically, I come from media, and so I already had a monthly publication for the apparel sector, focusing on B2B and talking about what's happening in the supply chain, providing in-depth market analysis. That expanded in terms of a web platform and various other assets, such as several weekly newsletters. And then we had a conference, right, called FashCon. Unfortunately, when the pandemic came, that was the end of the conference. And the thing that I really liked about the conference was being able to bring interesting people to our audience and be able to share ideas and information. Anyway, was nothing we could do about it because obviously everything was closed. So I decided to start something online, and it ended up being a podcast. It was supposed to be a video show, but nobody wanted to be on camera in those days. Now, after so many years on Zoom, people are much more comfortable being on camera. But we started out
Yes.
as a podcast. It was really just to be able to bring people together and share ideas. And it turned out it was actually a blessing because, as you know, when you have a podcast, you can bring people from all over the world to people all over the
Yes.
world. And so that's how we got to a seat at the table and then various sub podcasts within that platform.
All right. So, what year exactly you start your podcast?
In 2020. So we're in year five. It's hard to
Yes.
believe, but it's gone well. It's in 142 countries, a seat at the table, and we've been able to have really outstanding people on the show, being able to, like I say, bring ideas, insights, motivation to people all over the world who can tune in at no cost to themselves at their own convenience. One of the brilliant things about podcasting, I'm sure you know, right? As a host yourself.
Yes. Yes, it was amazing. Podcasting is really a great way to learn from other people. And as someone like a beginner in my career, in my podcasting journey, I get to learn a lot of people. I get to learn from other people. I get to have insights to help me grow my business, my podcasting, like that. And a lot of ways we can learn from other people. Also, we can tap on other people's audience, like that. If you guess people who have a lot of followers, of course they can become your followers also. So in your journey, how do you enjoy, or what do you enjoy most about hosting your podcast?
Oh, I think it's the opportunity to speak to people from many, many different areas. I like to talk to
Yes.
people. I like to hear their stories. I find it very interesting to learn what they're doing, what they've learned,
Yes.
what ideas they have, insights, and especially you get to talk to people from so many different backgrounds and from all over the world. So I think that's really the good part about it. And you can do it literally without having to travel. So you don't have to think about, oh, I'd love to talk to someone in this country, but oh, when am I ever going to get there? You can talk to people all over the world.
Yes. How many episodes have you already recorded, by the way?
I should know that off the top of my head, but it's been a couple of hundred, and
Wow.
we have a few more that are in the pipeline, and more scheduled to go. So, as you know, it sort of builds over time, and I think that's one of the really great things about podcasting is that the episodes become evergreen. So, unlike when you're doing other things on social media, because people might say, "Well, Jane, you could always." Post things on this or that other social media channel. However, those posts disappear. They have a very short shelf life, but with a podcast you have the advantage of being
Yes.
able to have people who listen to it. We have episodes from years ago, right, that are still getting quite a lot of downloads because people find the topic interesting and they'll search for that topic. and they don't look at it and say, oh, she recorded that back in 2021, no use. No, that'll come up just as readily. Some of those are still getting quite a lot of downloads.
Yes, exactly right. And tell us a little bit about what exactly you are doing and how do you use podcasting as a tool, of course, to spread your message, to showcase your expertise.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question because for me, podcasting is sort of a dual, I don't know what you would call it, vehicle, for lack of a better word. And that is that on the one hand, I'm able to enhance what I do with our inside fashion and current situation in sourcing products, which is to bring people live conversation around what's happening in the supply
Yes.
chain, specifically for the apparel industry. But at the same time, we can include other topics. And then I've leveraged what I've done with that to be able to help other people who are podcasters get started. So I have several courses on Udemy and some not on Udemy that teach people what I've learned and how to do it and how to get started, both as a host and then also how to land guest spots. Because a lot of people want to be a guest on podcasts, right? And they don't necessarily know how to do it. It's not difficult, but you have to have a few guidelines. It's like, oh, once someone points out to you, this is what you do, this is how you do it, you have to just know how to package yourself and then reach out to hosts.
Yes.
So I've been able to leverage what I've learned and help other people.
Yes, so that is really interesting. But right now you said you are in Hong Kong, right? So you are
Yeah.
from New York and you are living right now in Hong Kong. What's the reason behind living in Hong Kong even if you are in New York? And in New York is where you're a lot of people who are in passion, right?
Well, I think that it's a very good question. First of all, I love Hong Kong, and every day I wake up and think to myself, I'm really blessed to be living here in this beautiful city. It's just a fabulous place to be. And in terms of work wise, while you're right, a lot of the brands are located in New York. Now, some of them have moved to other parts of the US. And of course, there's a tremendous amount in Europe and all over the world. But when you look at Hong Kong, it's really a hub for where the garments are made, right? It's an apparel sourcing hub.
Yes.
So being here, you're at the beginning of the supply chain, so to speak, and that's the part of the industry that I focus on. So I'm not really that involved in the design side of things. I'm really involved from the market analysis that we do. It's focused a lot on the supply chain. And then of course we also do emerging markets. So Asia, as you know, is quite fast growing in terms of the consumer markets. So those are two key areas. So being in Hong Kong is quite a strategic location as well as a very lovely place to be.
Yes, and I get it now. That's why you are in Hong Kong. And by the way, have you been in the Philippines?
Of course, I love the Philippines. As they say, it's more fun in the Philippines, and it certainly
Yes.
is. I love Hong Kong, but it's certainly a lot of fun going to the Philippines. I love the Filipino people. It's just a wonderful vibe being there.
Yes, absolutely. And you can meet a lot of people here who are, and I can say it that people here are sometimes they are, they're very lovely and very just hospitality in the Philippines. And a lot of places also to visit. I'm promoting now the Philippines, of course. And
Yeah.
how long have you been in passion industry? You dedicated your life on passion, right?
Well, I have spent most of my career in this industry and in one aspect or another, but like I said, mainly on the supply chain side of things. So, it's been very interesting to watch how the industry has evolved and to see how the supply chain side of things, which used to be something nobody cared about, right? That was the back room. Everything was about the fashion. Now it's changed because people realize that you can't really run a fashion business or any business without being really on top of supply chain, being able to manage everything in terms of people want products to get to market faster. They want things to be less expensive. They want more flexibility. In the old days, people would place orders months in advance, big orders, right? Now they want to place very
Yes.
small orders. They want it in a few weeks. So it's very different, and it's really interesting to see how that's evolved and all the new technology that's coming through. Incredible, just incredible developments on the technology side of things.
Yes, exactly right. And how does the technology right now, like AI, affect or support the fashion industry or someone that you are in right now?
It's interesting because the apparel industry has always been criticized for being a low tech industry, right? for always doing things the old school way. Nobody ever wanted
Yes.
to upgrade and put in all the technologies that you have in other industries. However, now people are really embracing it. I think they learned when we had all the logistics problems during the pandemic years, and now there's that pressure to be more sustainable, to be faster. I think people realize they have no choice except to embrace technology. And as you mentioned quite correctly, AI is at the forefront because it's enabling people to do tremendous things. So, for example, AI is enabling people to, if you need to design something, you draw a sketch, right? And then you're going to want
Yes.
to change a few things, right? You may say, oh, I made this in blue, but let's just see how it looks like in red. Okay, before
Yes.
someone had to redraw it. Now with AI, boom, like that, right? They can automatically say, here's it in red. Oh, would you like a pattern? We can do it like that. So it can do all those iterations for you. You know, there's tremendous amount of things that can be done in terms of its suggestion on design to be able to create samples, for example. That's not necessarily using AI, but 3D printing so people can make samples without having to actually make a physical sample. So there's a tremendous amount that's coming through and new developments all the time. So it's an exciting time to be involved in this industry.
Yes, yes. Of course. What is your advice for someone who wants to get into fashion or who just beginner on the industry?
I think it depends upon what side you want to get into. I think you can be in the industry as people usually see it, which is creating your own brand, right? Or working for a brand. I mean, now,
Yes.
speaking of technology, once again, if you want to create your own brand and sell it, it's much easier now because all of these platforms are becoming more and more accessible. So you don't have to be a huge company with a massive amount of money in order to be able to access some of these tools. You can do so many different things right from your desktop without having to have fancy equipment. You get subscriptions to a lot of these different apps and so forth, and they can really do a lot in terms of helping you create things. You can sell online. So I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it's accessible. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, it would be very, very difficult for anybody to launch a brand. So people can do that. It's definitely within reach. It's not easy to do, but if you have the mental toughness and you're willing to stick with it, of course you can do that. And I think that
Yes.
people often overlook the huge opportunities in supply chain on the supply chain management side of things, which is a very interesting and complex kind of an industry to be in. It can be very lucrative. So I think that people oftentimes might not think of that and realize that there's a lot of really great job opportunities within the industry, but on the supply chain side.
Yes, exactly right. And just want to share something with you. Like, I started my own apparel brand last month also, but I don't have much
Great.
time to dedicate to growing it or to, to market it right now. I started my Loki Genius apparel because it is my
Okay.
brand in my podcast also.
Congrats.
Yes, but I don't have much time for it right now. But I am looking forward to pursue it sooner once I already have much fund to start it, to market it on social media like that. And it was exciting because since when I was in high school, I really wanted to start my own brand. And it was just right now connecting everything because I started my own podcast and I am planning to, when I grow this podcast, I want to have a clothing line, and it's very exciting. It's something I really wanted to do as as someone in here and as a young one. And what advice can you give me to to start it and to really pursue it? What are the things that I need to learn?
I think, the key to success, and I would say just about anything, is mental toughness. No matter what people do, the reason they fail is that they don't keep going. Most
Yes,
people,
exactly right.
if they can get over the getting started, right? You start out with an idea. Some people never get beyond
Yes.
dreaming about what it is they want, right? Me too, on a lot of things. Then, okay, you get started, but sooner or later you hit a wall. No matter who you are,
Yes.
no matter what you bring to the table, how much experience you have, sooner or later you hit a wall. And when you hit the wall of awful, you just don't feel like keeping going. It's
Yes.
difficult. Sometimes it's really painful. Sometimes everything's going wrong. Very few people can see their way past that. And that goes for business, that goes for things like fitness, for just about anything, right? Very few people can get through that desert. Do you know what I'm saying? Where you have to keep
Yes.
going and you don't really feel like you're getting anywhere and you just feel like you're doing all of this stuff for nothing. Very few people can. And that's really what the success is. I tell you, I've seen this over the years. People who are not particularly talented, but they have that rare gift of being able to keep on keeping on. And I see too many people who have
Yes.
talent, but if they don't see results very, very soon, they're out.
Yes, exactly right. Of course, the grit is the number one ingredient for success. Right now, I'm just thinking to to take it slowly. I have a priority to take. Like I'm starting my own agency. I'm building my podcast, and after that, that's the time I can pursue on some things that because everything takes time to grow. And you can wear a lot of hats right now if you are just beginning it. So just focus on one thing and grow it and expand it inside of what you're doing. So I'm really excited of what I'm capable of because it is my I'm on my 3 months building my own name, my brand, my podcast, my agency. You know what? I just want to share that month of February I resigned from my previous job because I want to learn more and I want to grow. I don't have any idea what to do. So I just watch any videos out on YouTube. So I start my podcast to learn from other people and to grow and to market myself.
Yes.
I start my agency, and after that I get to talk to a lot of people, and a lot of things happen in that very short span of time. So I'm really excited as someone like me start talking with you. So I'm always excited when I'm talking to someone who's been there, who's a lot of experience because I'm always eager to learn from my guest. And what's your number one challenge that you experience?
That's a very good question. I think that launching anything, whether it be a podcast, a newsletter, a publication, anything whatsoever, in a sense, it's easier to do nowadays because the tools are accessible. However,
Yes,
because of that, more people are doing things. So you're competing in a very noisy, crowded market. That's
exactly.
really, I think, on the one hand, anyone can do it. So many people do it. It's a double-edged sword. So, how do you stand out in that kind of a very noisy market? And that's not an easy thing to do. Typically,
Yes,
we advise people you need to find a very small niche. Who can you really provide value to? And that's counterintuitive for most people. Most people want to say, well, I can do this, I can do that. They want something very wide because they figure they're going to catch more fish with a wider net. But it's counterintuitive, however, you don't, because you end up being just another general podcast, newsletter, blog post, whatever. So the more you can really, really focus in the beginning, right? You can always expand later,
yes,
but find one person, almost think about one person who you can provide value to. Maybe it's a best friend who you coach, or a sibling, or someone at work. But picture that person, or a customer. Picture that one person and think, what do I want to say to that person? And just keep coming up with things for them. And then you'll be able to have something that has enough uniqueness that somebody is going to want to listen. And from that, more people have the same interest, and you can go from there. But in the beginning, people don't want to do that. They want to have something for everybody, and then they don't stand out.
I always say this to my guests. So I visit your website and a lot of comments there saying that you ask good questions. All right. Can you give us a little bit some of your strategy or your tips on asking good questions?
Well, I've been doing interviews for a very long time, right? Because I come from media, so I've had, when I went into this, I was able to leverage many years of talking to people, asking questions. So I had a little bit of an unfair advantage, you might say, in that respect. What you want to do when you talk to people is find out, is there some unique angle? You don't want to necessarily put them on the spot, but you want to think to yourself, if I was someone from my audience, what would they want to know from this person? And then when somebody says something, ask them, could you tell me more about that? So ask them, could you explain that a bit more? Could you give me an example? Things like that, to be able to
All
just
right.
go a little, because a person, particularly if they're skilled at being interviewed, knows that someone asks you a question, you're going to provide an answer, but you're not going to go on and on and on and on, right? You just say,
Yes.
okay, You asked me how I got started. I try to give you a concise view and then I stop because then it's over to you, right? Then you can either say, could you tell me a little bit more about that? Or what was your biggest challenge or things like that? Or you could ask something totally different. So what I try to do as someone who's interviewing is ask people to go a little bit deeper on that. Could you tell me more about that? What happened next? What was your biggest challenge? What was the big breakthrough? Things like that, right? What's next? So things like that to try to, pull more out of it. Like I said, if you're good at being interviewed, to give a short answer and then let the host or the interviewer ask you for more.
Yes, that is exactly right. I am learning right now. Thank you so much for that. And what is your vision with your podcast, Sit at the Table podcast? Where do you see it in the next couple of years?
Well, what I'm trying to do is take it from what it started out, which was me just being able to have interesting conversations with a wide range of people when we were stuck at home, and hopefully bring something to my audience who were already people who were subscribers to our publication and our newsletters, because I would take the podcast and
Yes.
also put it newsletter. I still do. So I wanted to be able to do that, but now I'm looking to bring in subcategories on that. So in other words, a seat at the table is going to then have subcategories, book reviews, right, for business books, which is something we do in Inside Fashion, but now we'll bring that onto the interview side of things and then niche
Yes.
down on a couple of other things. So I think that I'll be able to take my own advice, which is to provide more niche and focused subsets. Because unfortunately, a seat at the table became very broad. Everything I counsel people not to do, in a sense, it covers a very vast range of topics. Because I started it out, as I explained, more or less, during a time when we were just looking to connect with people. But now it really
Yes.
does, it could do with some sharpening up, in my opinion.
Yes, yes. And I visit also your YouTube. You have YouTube channel, but you rarely upload the full video there. And you record audio and video, right?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we started off as audio only because when I first started the podcast and reached out to people, people were not going to have that camera on. People told me, no, no,
Yes.
Jane, there's no camera. So I said, okay, that's fine. And that was a blessing because it's a heck of a lot easier to edit audio only. Once you put
Yes.
video onto something, you've now 10x'd the production side of things.
Yes.
It's just 1,000 times, more moving parts that need to be dealt with on my side, on the guest side. A lot of guests don't have experience being on camera, but just even in terms of sitting up so that they're actually on the camera, not below the camera. So,
Yes.
so that's how that started. I started to put a few things on YouTube because I love to watch YouTube, but never did much with it. And I don't know whether or not that podcast as it is ideal for YouTube. Like I said, I'm working on some other things. So I have not done a lot on YouTube with that. It's sort of something hanging over my head. It's something I've wanted to do, but just haven't figured out what would be suitable. But I could just take all the
Yes.
episodes and upload them, which I may or may not do. It should be more focused, in my opinion. That's all.
Yes, exactly right. So that you can drive more traffic to your full videos, to your newsletters, and to your
Mm.
service and what you offer. So I'm struggling with this one in my podcast. How do you end your podcast? Can I have some tip?
Well, after I finish speaking with the guest, I thank them for joining me. And then it depends. I sometimes have an outro, a brief outro, right? That I tell people, thank you. It's a standard outro, right? That says, thanks so much for being with me. If you have any comments or questions, please reach out. And, any other announcements I want to make. And then I say, this is Jane Singer. Thank you for, see you in the next one or something like that. And I have a little bit of music that I also have, like a little theme music. So I was
Yes.
doing that for a while. Then I wasn't sure whether that was just making it too long, because oftentimes when people look at something, they think if they see a very long time stamp on there, some people are intimidated. So people started to tell me that they wanted something closer to the 30-minute mark because that would be about the amount of time they'd be driving to someplace. So they said, well, I like to listen to podcasts when I drive, but I don't want to tune into something that's too long because I'll be at the destination before it finishes. So I realized that a lot of people actually wanted shorter things. Doesn't have to necessarily be shorts, right? Like a 2 minute or a 10 minute, but usually it would be good to keep it under 30 minutes. So then I said, well, how do I cut it down? Because I want to do an intro to introduce the guest, right? We want to talk, and then we want to close the show. So then I just cut the end. I figured that's the less important part. And I try
Yes.
to stick closer when I'm interviewing people and keep a timer going so that we can stay on time. So that's why I stopped doing it, and then now I've added it back in. So I don't know. I experiment and just see what may
Yes.
or may not work. It's hard to know. The only way you can do is just try.
Yes, exactly right. I end my podcast like this. If people want to know more about you, how they can find you?
Yes, that's a good thing to do.
Are you mostly active on LinkedIn,
Oh, if people
YouTube,
if
or
people want to okay, if people want to connect with me,
yes, yes.
yes. Well, of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with people there. And usually that's sort of the best point of entry because sooner or later I'll see it and then I'll be able to get back to you. We also have our Inside Fashion website, right, at insidefashionlive.com or the podcast website, seat.fm. So any of those are good for finding more about the actual products and the podcast. But sure, I would love to connect with people. Reach out to me. Absolutely.
All right. All right, people. If you want to know more and want to learn more from what Jane is doing, reach out to her and yeah, just talk with her about what you want. And she's always available to you. So thank you so much, Jane, for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. It's very late right there. Same time right now to us.
Yes.
And I really appreciate your time. I hope we meet soon so that I can learn more from what you're doing. And God bless you and good luck in what you're doing. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jovel.